Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to be looking at AlmaLinux as a possible replacement for CentOS. Stay tuned right after this. A lot of people have been asking me about doing a review of AlmaLinux, and yeah, I'm going to do that. I had it planned. I just wanted to do Rocky Linux first. So AlmaLinux is another candidate to replace CentOS. I would say it is a bug-for-bug replacement for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but it does have a few things that Rocky Linux doesn't. And Rocky Linux has a few things that AlmaLinux does. One of the questions that came up last time was AlmaLinux 8.3, but I thought this was the first release. 8.3 refers back to the Red Hat Enterprise Linux version, which is 8.3, and the reason why a lot of these, like even CentOS did it, where it would put in the same version number as the version number of Red Hat. That way people knew that this version of CentOS was the exact replacement for Red Hat, and also the same for AlmaLinux and the same for Rocky Linux. So when you pull down those release candidates, you're actually pulling down the version number that Red Hat uses on the RHEL versions of their distribution. So that way you know which one you're getting. So it is 8.3, unlike Rocky Linux, is a production stable release. So there's one of the big differences right there, is that you can begin using this right now. It is not in beta. It is a full production ready release. There are some limitations with AlmaLinux, but unless you're using ARM processors, you're probably not going to care. Right now, the only ISO image that I can see out there, now I only checked the 8.3. I didn't check the 8.4 beta. But for 8.3, the only architecture that's available is x86-64. And it, just like Rocky Linux, it's available in 3 different ISOs: a minimal, a DVD, and a boot image ISO. AlmaLinux functions like the CentOS build. It sits in the same place that CentOS did, that is, in the Red Hat structure that existed prior to the, well, it currently exists, is that Fedora feeds Red Hat and the Red Hat repositories feed CentOS. So, and that is the same for AlmaLinux. It is the Fedora images that feed Red Hat, and Red Hat in turn is used by AlmaLinux to pick up its distros. Although, if you notice in the source for the repos, some of them are coming from Fedora. Rocky does exactly the same thing, but it is the 8.3 versions of that repo. So Red Hat, by the way, does as well. So don't think this is some kind of bug. It isn't. They're following the same thing that Red Hat's doing. It is bug for bug compatible with Red Hat. 8.4 beta is not recommended for production. It is a testing release, and in fact 8.4 beta is the latest Red Hat Enterprise Linux version as well. So even if you were to download their version, you're not getting a production ready system either for 8.4. It has not been officially released yet. So yeah, you're getting the same thing that Red Hat has out on their site as well. AlmaLinux 8.3 supports, just like Rocky Linux and Red Hat, supports the base OS and the application stream repositories. Of course, as I explained last time, the base OS contains the core set of OS functionality, and then the application stream introduces this concept in multiple versions. If you want the non-free and extras in Red Hat, that it's a little bit different in how you have to install it. But in CentOS and Rocky and Alma, you can just install the EPL release package, and you will get those repos built so that you can then draw packages from those if you wish. Red Hat, you actually have to install the RPM from the website. So it's a bit of a longer method. And I think the reason for that is it's tied to the subscription manager, and so its mechanism is different. And Yeah, and that in order to use any of the repos within Red Hat, you have to have a valid subscription to do it. The install options, there's a number of them. Server with GUI, server, and I think there's workstation. We'll check on that. I think so. And there are some other options you can pick and choose from as well. Linux kernel is identical to Red Hat, Rocky. It's the same, 418.0-240. Now, you'll find there are patch variants depending upon which video of mine you look at. If you go back and look at Rocky, you might see a different patch variant than AlmaLinux, but I can guarantee you that if you run the update, the DNF update for Rocky Linux, you'll get the same patch to the kernel. So yeah, and then the last time I talked about this is the same as it was for Rocky Linux, the kernel prominent features. It was released in August of 2018. So if you're not watching the Rocky Linux video, you don't know what this is talking about. This is the actual Linux kernel that comes with the 8.3 version of Red Hat, the 8.3 version of Rocky Linux, and the 8.3 version of AlmaLinux. CentOS is the same. 8.3 is still available until December. But yeah, it's still the same. So there's some features that were introduced in this kernel, like a restartable sequence, the support for unprivileged mounts, provides a net filter support for the Berkeley packet filter, supports zero-copy TCP receive APIs. That's a performance enhancement. There's also AFXDP for high-performance networking, and that allows you to use cards that are up to, I think, well, I'm not exactly sure, but I know 25 gig is one of the options. I'm not sure if it actually goes to 100 gig. I have not played with any of that. Those are still kind of expensive at the moment. And then there's support for future AMD Vega 20 hardware, which of course is considered, I wouldn't call it obsolete, but I would consider it superseded by a version which is better. So yeah, support for Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 system on a chip. Of course, that is not the latest Snapdragon processor either. But that's what you're getting with Red Hat, Alma, and Rocky Linux, is you're getting a stable core operating system and not the latest and greatest features. So the installer, just like Rocky Linux and Red Hat, permits the root password and user account creation prior to the actual installation. In the past, that the installation would start, and then I always felt like you were in a race. Will it install before I get my user accounts built or not? But it wasn't a race, but it just made you feel weird. You know, it was like, wow, it took off on the install, and I don't have the account set up yet. And then, of course, Red Hat offers RHEL for Edge. I mentioned this the last time on the Rocky video. It's the same for Alma. I didn't see an option to install that particular version of RHEL. Don't know what their plans are. I'm not involved with the AlmaLinux team. If maybe one of them see this video and they want to respond in the comment, great. They are, they're of course owned by CloudLinux, so possible that they might be interested in that. But again, as always, it depends on their customer base, right? It depends on whether or not they have enough demand to justify the effort to put in to bring that part of it over as well. So yeah, there's a number of technology previews that were in the kernel, the 2.18 kernel, or 4.18 kernel. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was going back way back there on the 2.18, 4.18. So NVMe TCP, we talked about that last time. That's setting up NVMe shares across a TCP/IP network. XDP provides the features, provides use of XDP features on CPUs other than AMD. And then AFXDP allows for high performance networking and packet processing. So it does accelerate the packet processing. As you know, packet processing is the bane of high-performance networking. So as you get above speeds of 10 gig or higher, you're going to start seeing impact based on the interrupt handling of your processor. So Stratus file system is available in this release. It of course is a It is a technology preview and not recommended as an officially supported production file system. As mentioned before, technology previews are really put out there in order to allow people that want to test new features and check them out, see what their viability and the application into their mix requirements might be, just to see whether or not those kinds of things will work for them. So it isn't necessarily recommended that you go out and install this and run your production system on Stratus. It takes years usually for a file system to, one, be accepted, and two, really be tested thoroughly enough to ensure that the file system is stable enough that you're not going to be losing data or crashing the system and losing your uptime. So yeah, we don't want that. Those are not good things. So Podman containers are also a technology preview. Security features, now these essentially are the same except for one as Rocky. So SE-Linux policy changes to try to make it easier to use SE-Linux and a little bit more resilient for things in the system that SE-Linux normally would flag and not allow. Performance enhancements and bug fixes for OpenSCAP, and we talked about that last time. SSH remote OpenSCAP sessions were a problem before, and those have been fixed. There's some others that have been bugs that have been squashed as well. One of the things that AlmaLinux has that Rocky Linux does not yet have, but I remember Rocky Linux is a beta, and AlmaLinux is not. So there are a full set of OSCAP security profiles that are included, like PCI DSS and HIPAA. There's also government. There's the AFIP, the FIP standard ones, and there's also some that are in the classified environments for the Department of Defense in the U.S. So those are there as well. Now, OSCAP, like most things, is not the definitive answer to security. None of these are. They're just tools to help you make an assessment of where your system is. Now, OSCAP takes the extra step that once it finds a deficiency, it will create a shell script, which comes from actually a third-party vendor that does a lot of work with the CVEs. So they will actually create shell scripts to remediate that particular deficiency in the security baseline. So you can, once you're done, you can actually run the scripts that are generated, and then those will run against your system to mediate the security issue that was found during the OSCAP run. So that really makes things a little easier for you. At least it will help. IP table enhancements and bug fixes, talked about that before. Of course, CloudLinux is the parent company for AlmaLinux, and it is that team that is responsible for putting together the builds for AlmaLinux. They're planning to release commercial support for AlmaLinux, and that would be available in May. They plan to offer a number of tiers. They have a premium tier plan, which allows customers that need it to tailor not only the support for the operating system, but also specific applications, or as they said, solution domains that a particular customer may have. So yeah, so that allows them to do some tailoring on the support. And one of the big differences between AlmaLinux and Red Hat is Red Hat doesn't offer a 24/7 365 support window. AlmaLinux is planning to do that. Now, as they get closer to now, right now, it is not available. You can go and sign up for it, but sometime this month, at the time I'm making this video in May 2021, it might even be ready by the time you see this video on Monday. I don't know. But, yeah, they are planning to roll this out. But you can sign up for it now and get on the list so that you can find out more about it and then make decisions whether or not this applies to your company or not. So, like always, I think probably we should go do a demo. So let me go set that up. Okay, so again, I'm going to be using Proxmox. You'll probably notice here that do have a number of systems that I have set up now. So I have set up Rocky and Alma and Red Hat. So my plan here is to kind of show some of the differences between the repos and some of the differences between, if I find any differences in the package versions, or if I find anything that's a little off. But I plan to do a comparison of all three. But that's my personal thing that I want to do, and I'll share the results that I find with you. So I've set up this is my second version of Alma, and I've set up a 4 CPU, 4 gig, and a 32 gig of disk space. Now I'm letting it default to an LVM2 with an XFS file system on top. So let's go ahead and start this up. And we'll open this, and hopefully, there we go. It's going. Okay, I don't need to do that. I've already done that, so I don't need to verify it again. This should bring up Anaconda. Okay, so I give a chance on my language, defaults to English. Go ahead and do that. And I'll change my time zone to Chicago, which is closer to me. You have a choice on your installation media, just like Red Hat does. And then here's some of the things you can do. You can do a server with GUI, a server, minimal install, workstation, custom build, virtual host. And just like before, depending upon which base environment you choose, you get additional software options over here to install for that. So yeah, I'll put it under a GUI because that's what I did with Rocky, and so we'll do the same thing here. I'll select my drive, and I'm just going to take automatic, and automatic is XFS on top of an LVM2 file system. Now, you can go in if you just want a simplified version of the file system. One of the things that I noticed when I was playing around with the rescue build, with the rescue mode, it was not finding the LVM2 partition, so you would just be aware you'll have to put in the commands for the system to scan for it and then to mount it. So yeah, it's not automatically finding it. And that's not just true of AlmaLinux, it's also true of Rocky Linux. I have not tried it yet under Red Hat, and I plan to. So here's your OSCAP policies, and of course these are all in draft, as you would kind of expect, because I'm not sure. Usually these take years before these become final. So, but that's okay. I mean, at least it gives us some place to start. And then if I wanted to install, like if I was doing HIPAA, I could just select this profile, and that would show up down here with those on there. Or I can just turn that off, and it won't install anything. So I'm not going to put one out, but if you want one, you can look through here and do that. So these are, I believe this is the CNSSI, and that is STIG, that's Department of Defense. This one, standard, that's probably a commercial version. It's also criminal justice. And then there's NIST. So yeah, there's also Australian, and that's pretty good. I mean, that they've got those in there. So if you need those things, you've got them. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the password for root. Oh, doesn't match. Oh, okay. Fixed. All right. And I'll do a user ID as well. Make it administrator, even though I do have a root user on here. Okay. And we should be off to the races, so I'll go ahead and begin the install. I'm going to pause it here. It is... I don't know. 15:20. So I'll be back. So that took about 6 minutes or so. I'm showing 15:26 right now to complete, and then we'll go ahead and reboot it. Okay. Now I'm just going to make this larger for you right now, but I will change the resolution. So yeah, this is similar to Rocky, where you go in and check it off. That's because in the Red Hat version, this is where you would set up your subscription and activate it. Whereas in Alma, all you have to do is accept the license agreement. All right. Hopefully, I put that in. Yep. Here's our configuration screen. No, don't need that. And we're done. And it should come up with the GNOME keyboard map. And the first thing I want to do is go to settings, which I'll have to go in here first. And go down to devices and display, and then change it right here. I'm going to, let's see. There's the one I want right there. Yep, keep it. All right, so I guess the first thing we need to do is let's pull down some changes. This has been, I think AlmaLinux has, they actually released theirs, I think sometime at the end of March. So this has been out for a while. Yeah, you can see that, well, it kind of blew forward there a little bit, but you can see that the repos, there's your base OS repo, your app stream. Now this one is including the power tools and extras. I wonder if that means I don't have to install the EPL packages. Well, we'll find out. And it's asking me to enable a couple of them. That's the base OS. The other one was probably the app. And I'll be back. All right, so we're all done with that. I just want to see if, here, I should need the sudo to do this. Let's see if it finds them. Nope. So I think it will be, yeah, it's released. So oops. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and reboot because I did see it building a new kernel. So there must have been a few patches for the kernel. And indeed there were. You can see that it is 22 on the minor patch. Did not seem to remember what, yeah, I did not seem to remember what my persistent setting was here, did it? Did not persist it. Nope, it didn't. Hello. think I set it up. There it goes. Let's try to get a full screen now. I think they regressed a patch. All right, we'll leave it at that for now. This is fine. Okay. So what I want to do is, first of all, we'll verify the version of the operating system. We are on kernel 418-240, and .22.1 is the minor patch release level. Let's see what we got for 1.2 gig is the amount of memory. Let's see. This should show me, yeah, same problem here. The default logo, which is okay. It's just nobody has done one yet in the NeoFetch for Alma or for Rocky, so it's a bit new. Yeah, 4.49 is the bash. I thought there was some problems with this, but they might have back leveled some of the patches for that. I know there was some security issues for that. 3.32.2 is the GNOME, so not the latest, of course. All right, and let's see how much space we're taking up. Looks like 4.6 gig, about the same as Rocky was taking. And you can definitely see that so I have two active logical volumes, one for root and one for the swap partition. So Glances does expose my external IP, so we'll do that this way, where I'm just going to disable that function so it doesn't display it at all. So right now 1.47 with the app caches, and I mean, again, for me, that doesn't bother me, but I'm sure it will bother those of you with smaller memory footprint systems. So, yeah, for me, it doesn't bother me. That's fine. I mean, I've dealt with operating systems that take a lot more memory than that. Okay, so I guess the only other thing to do is take a look at. Come on. We'll just run it like we always do. See what we get. I did see a warning pop up on the last time I ran this on 3.0.3, because it's been more than 4 months since they've updated this. So updated the tool, that is. Just wait and see what we get. Seeing a lot of suggestions going by and some warnings. 64. Let's see what the actual errors were. Yeah, I can't do much about that. I'm under a VM, and yes, it does use a promiscuous interface. Yeah, more than 4 months old. Yeah, well, that's not my problem, Linus. That's yours. Go fix it. Let's see. Yeah, cord up. Seen that one before. Age. The var, having the var on its own partition. Yeah. Cups. Probably just turn that one off. There's all the SSH configs that need to be done. and legal banner, syscontrol. Our options are not the same as what they want. Again, it's nothing I haven't seen before, so not really, at least in this first pass, not something I'm really all that concerned about. What do I think about AlmaLinux? As far as the installation, it's very easy. I didn't have any problems with it. It looks like it is using a very similar repo structure to Red Hat. And it also looks like, at least from my initial cut into this, it looks very similar to what I would have expected CentOS to do. Same with Rocky. I don't really, at this particular point, since I haven't done a point-by-point evaluation of all three of these to see how Red Hat compares with my CentOS and also with Rocky Linux and also with AlmaLinux. And so I won't know that until I actually run through my application, install, and see what kind of problems it creates. But for right now, it's a viable candidate. I think I like what CloudLinux is doing with this. And as far as what their long-term efforts are going to be to add support to this, what additional Red Hat features they may add on to this in terms of the product solution base, whether that be Edge or whether that be scale out storage or something like OpenStack or something like that, where you have full application environments that you're setting up. But don't know what all that will be. I'm sure that'll transpire over time. Stay tuned. I'll cover those as I learn about them. But yeah, it's definitely viable. I would definitely go forward with this. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I had today for this. It looks good. It looks like a good candidate. And I'll let you know what I find out when I start to move my application over. Hope to see you all again real soon. Please like and subscribe. Thank you to my Patreons. I do appreciate each and every one of you. You make it possible for me to build out these kinds of things, the structure I have here in order to be able to bring this stuff to you. And hope to see you in the next video, and bye for now.